I was off yesterday, off from work, and I went to go visit a friend. Got up early in the morning, went to a 7 o'clock a.m. mass at the cathedral in town with a friend of mine. And then after we did that, we had breakfast and I went to another friend's house. He's retired, got nothing else to do. So we sat there at his cabin and we looked out at the rain falling and stared at the trees. And hours went by and afternoon turned into evening and we didn't accomplish anything or do anything. It was a long day of doing nothing. And then I thought to myself how I had time to do this because my life isn't really all that filled with extra things or with important things. So if I took a day and just spent it relaxing with a friend, talking about random stuff, I didn't lose anything. And then I thought about other people I know who are busy with their careers, that are really absorbed in high pressure jobs. And for them, it seems like everything that's not super important is some sort of a act of heroism for them to be involved in. For them to take an hour to play a game is totally outside the realm of anything that they would do because they're so important. Taking a little while to just actually have fun with their kids is outside the realm of anything they would do because they're so important. Maybe they know that they should be good parents, so they will take some time and they will force themselves to put away their phone on a weekend and spend a little bit of time pretending that they enjoy the company of their family. But really, they're distracted. And they're sending all those micro signals that the time they're taking is a total imposition. I remember when I was a kid, I liked it when people paid attention to things that I actually enjoyed. When I was playing a game or when I was playing outside and somebody would take time to actually want to do what I was doing. And that was rare because usually I would be doing things I wanted to do and then other people, like grown-ups, they just figured that was stupid stuff. So I would entertain myself. But what I really didn't like as a kid was when somebody would act like they wanted to spend time with me and they wanted to do what I was doing and they were interested, but they really weren't interested at all. And so they'd take maybe 15 minutes or something and pretend that they were interested. And then they'd lose interest and move on because the truth was they were just trying to satisfy themselves that they had been involved and that they had paid enough attention so that they could, in good conscience, go back to ignoring me. And a kid can tell the difference. Like, there's definitely a difference between being interested in what someone's doing and having time for it, and just pretending you care when in reality all you're doing is just checking a box to say, yeah, I was involved. I showed I cared. Now I can move on. And it comes back to how busy are you? Do you have time to do things that you enjoy and to take time for other people? And also, of course, to do some of those things that need to be done, like, of course, your job and stuff like that. But to have enough balance to not be busy all the time. A lot of the things that we think are importance are just self-importance. Because somebody said the only person that's going to remember the long hours that you put in at work 20 years from now is your kids. And it's true. I know people who put 20 years in to their job and then they retire. And you know what people say about them when they retire? Basically, good riddance. The boss is just glad that that person's gone, because now they can hire somebody that doesn't cost as much payroll, who's younger, who's more adaptable. So do you want to spend your life slaving away, working 80 hours a week, trying to impress your neighbors, trying to impress your boss, just so that you can get to the point where people are glad when you're gone? Because you might think that the sacrifice you're making is going to be remembered, but it really isn't. It's kind of like playing a video game and saying, if I get to end game, if I'm the best player and I have really amazing gear, then I'm going to be remembered and people are going to care about me and they're going to be in awe of my achievement. No, they're not. All those other people really could care less whether you're a level 1 player or a end game player, because it's not all about you. And that's fine. It's fine if you have balance in your life, then it doesn't need to be all about you. But if you think that what you're doing is going to get you respect points, and it really isn't, then you're just kidding yourself and you're killing yourself in the process to do something that really doesn't matter. And the problem, the risk, is that instead of enjoying the journey, all you can see is the destination. Sometimes you've got to just slow down. You've got to learn to enjoy the experience. And I think it's like, you know, maybe this ties in a little bit. It's like fast travel in games. There's waypoints all over the place, and you can travel with the click of a button. But once you start doing that, then you lose that sense of continuity. You lose the sense of going on a long journey to get where you're going, because now it's just click a button, pay 100 gold, whatever it is, and you're on the other side of the world. It's not the same as riding out across the landscape, getting a feel for how one place is connected to another. And it's amazing how much we lose when we do that. It's also amazing how much we lose when we do that with our lives. Think of the difference between driving across the country and seeing 3,000 miles of vistas and landscapes and little towns and country roads versus going to the airport, waiting in line, watching a movie on the plane, taking a nap, and then being where you were going without having any sense of context or any way to really rationalize and make personal all of the distance that you traveled. I think about all the times that I spent in the city commuting for hours, and I didn't pay attention to anything that was around me. Everything seemed boring because I was just worried about the destination. I was just trying to get to the place I was going. All the communities and places that I passed in the mile after mile that I drove down the freeway didn't really matter, because all I knew was where I started and where I was going, and the technical steps that I needed to take to get there. I knew the stoplights. I knew where I needed to turn. I knew how long it would take me to get there. But it really wasn't anything special. Compare that to going on a bicycle trip or going for a long walk. Suddenly everything becomes relevant and interesting. And every house looks different. And you never know who you're going to meet when you're walking down the sidewalk. The more you slow down, the bigger the world starts to seem. And it's the same thing with our time. The more we slow down, the more we stop chasing things, the more we try to get to a point where we can afford to pause. We can afford to share our time with others without continuing to look at the watch, look at the clock, and say, okay, I need to move on now. The more we have that spare time to say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to see where today's path takes me. And maybe that path just means I'm going to go sit on the porch with an old friend that I haven't seen for a little while, and we're just going to watch the rain fall and talk about things that don't matter. And that's what we're going to do today. The more we slow down, the more we start to realize things of value that we don't really have to reach very far to find. We just have to slow down enough to actually let the journey be enough exactly as it is. It's amazing how we try to escape the things that we think are inhibiting and boring in life. And then when we have the ability to choose our own path, we usually wind up choosing some variation of those things that we were actually trying to get away from. Work stresses us out. So what do we do in our spare time? We come up with projects. We make deadlines for ourselves. And we get frustrated about the things that we haven't accomplished. Sometimes we're addicted to grinding so much that we can't just enjoy the experience along the way. I think that's why people get frustrated with games a lot of times. Because they can't slow down. They can't just enjoy the journey. I remember when New World came out and people were so excited about that game. People took weeks off of work to play that game. They relentlessly chased endgame. They ground for hour after hour, chopping trees and PvPing and doing all of the content. And then they hated the game because it wasn't enough. And while I would agree that there are some reasons why New World is not the best game ever made, a big reason why people got so frustrated with it was because they didn't view it as a journey. It wasn't just an adventure. It was a race to the destination. And when you're chasing a destination, that's like looking for the end of a rainbow. It's gonna end badly. Because you're never gonna find that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. All you're gonna do is eventually realize that there is no end of the rainbow, because when you go to where you thought it was, you won't see anything special at all. And then there's people who just have a good time. People who enjoy the ride. People who have time for their friends and have time for themselves. People who don't feel like everything has to be defined by competition. And that's the place where you actually find joy and satisfaction. And that doesn't mean you don't achieve things. It doesn't mean that you don't reach the end game ever. It doesn't mean that you have absolutely no sense of competition whatsoever. It's just, that's not what comes first. Eventually you might get good at stuff. It's just, you make your main goal to enjoy your life. And you let the getting good part be more of a side quest. You meander your way down all those obscure country roads and you see amazing things and you do amazing things and you have great company. And then one day you get where you were going. And instead of feeling bored and feeling like the destination is underwhelming, and then moving on to the next thing you have to chase, you look back on a long journey with admiration and fondness, and you say, wow, that was amazing. Look how far we've come. That, I think, is the better way to adventure in life. and in gaming. Whether we're talking about how much we fast travel in an RPG or finding time to actually disconnect and relax on that vacation day. It's kind of all the same conversation. It's the same basic thing. It's that question of whether life is something that you live to enjoy or just race to complete. Life is too short for racing to the end game. Sooner or later, we'll all get there. There's no need to hurry. Till next time. Thank you for watching.